Peace to the planet. You know what it is, Adisa, chilling on the West Coast as always. And I have one of America's favorite authors, one of my way back homies, one of, you know what I'm saying? Like there's so many one ofs, you know what I'm saying? But his name is Jeff Chang, and he wrote this. Look at this book cover. Oh no, the blur's messing with it. This is an awesome book cover with with, with Bruce Lee on it, and it's called Water Mirror Echo. If you know me, you know how much I love Bruce. You know how much I love Bruce Lee. And this book is by far the best thing dropping on Bruce right now. So, welcome, Jeff Chang, to Bishop Chronicles podcast. How are you doing, sir?
Man, it is awesome to be here with you this morning for sure.
Yeah, man, it's
Yeah.
really good. I deeply appreciate you making time for me. I know you've been doing a major book tour with this amazing piece of work you've dropped, and it's much needed. It's like right on time. It's crazy. Like I
Mm.
remember when I knew you were working on the book, I kept wondering like, when is he gonna drop it? Like, like
Yeah, that was
this,
a real long time too, right?
it was a long. How long? What? How long was it officially since you
You know
said
what? I don't
the book?
officially know because I haven't wanted to go back to look at the contract. Um, but the reason is actually because it makes me sad, dude. Like, like a lot of Bruce's contemporaries, the folks who would have wanted to have interviewed, a good number of those folks passed away, and I
Yeah,
so yeah, we got along. Got you just know that this has been in the works for
a
a
minute.
while. Yeah, for a while for sure. I did most of the writing though over the last well, since after the pandemic from 2022 on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just kind of came and because you know me, I'm a slow ass writer, but yeah, once I got going, it was hard to stop.
Well,
Yeah.
here's something and I'm serious about this when I ask this, like, and I'm asking this like as a fellow writer. Like, dude, you're a really good writer. You're really good.
Thanks,
I mean,
man.
I know you win awards and all that stuff, and that's dope, and I want those for you. But what I'm also saying is that I find you to be a really fantastic writer, and I'm curious, like, if you could kind of share what you worked on to have the skill set you do. Like, can you talk about what that's been like?
I mean, just like you, it's just been being at it for a really long time. I
Or
think
you're better
like
than me.
you and I,
Like,
we both.
you're better than me. Like
What's
I've been
that?
at it, but I haven't been at it at the same level, and I definitely don't think that I've been at it with the like. I'll be honest, when you dropped "Can't Stop, Won't Stop," which is a book on hip hop for those that don't know, and it's incredible. And it's been banned recently.
Psh,
Like, but
exactly.
like we'll
Yeah.
talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
But like the thing that I loved about that book, and it's gonna sound strange, it really wasn't the hip hop parts.
Hmm.
It was how you framed where society was as these things evolved. Like that actually was like pachowy mind blowing for me. Like I was like, yo, this is dope because that cultural framework makes the value of everything. It's like you reset the value system in what we were looking at. Like I thought that was beautiful. But like talk to me about like you as a writer and evolving and stuff like that. I'm just curious.
I mean, I was just gonna say, it's just like you and I got started in this, whew, decades upon decades ago, and I always loved your writing because I always felt like we had a kindred spirit. Like you were always trying to talk about hip hop in a way to give lessons to folks and to surface all these things like, oh, I didn't know that, about the history, particularly the Black Power history. When you're doing a lot of the work with the Black Panther
Yeah, yeah.
Party and all that kind of stuff. So I always like love that, and part of that is just uh, the research. Part of that is feeling like a responsibility because you know this stuff to be able to put it out there. I think
Yeah.
for you, at least I saw that in your work and
Thank you. Yeah.
definitely like recognize that in my own kind of trajectory. But um, yeah, man, just the just trying to get better and better over the years at being able to really explain what's really going on in my head.
Mhm.
Trying to not just on the craft level find my voice which took a long time. I think like I've known you for decades and we've been writing together for decades, but it also took me decades to actually feel like, oh, what's in here is actually coming out like on the keyboard.
There. Yeah, that is exactly what I meant. There's such a gap there for me still. Like I struggle with that. I think I'm
Mm.
more like I know that I'm more of an idea guy than a technical writer. And even though I can tell a story well verbally, I don't feel like it transfers as well in the ink, man. I don't know.
I mean, I think you're being a little too humble or maybe a little too critical of yourself, but it is the type of thing where it's an ongoing struggle, like you're also like we evolved, like our ideas that we hold now are sometimes there's through lines, but it's also different. We've evolved. We learn a lot through experience. We learn a lot through more study and all that kind of stuff. And so, your voice, your writing kind of has to continue to keep up with. I don't say you as your. I say my. Like my writing has to continue to evolve to keep up with like all the stuff that I'm processing and learning. That's why it's fun. It's like as long as we're here, as long as we're here on this good earth, that'll continue to evolve.
Yeah.
Hopefully, and it's a beautiful thing.
No, man, that's really great, man. Now, let's talk about Bruce real quick.
Sure.
So Bruce Lee, he exists in this really kind of unique and beautiful space simultaneously, where he's like a global icon, and then he's at still deeply misunderstood,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what drew you to write Water, Mirror, Echo now in this particular cultural moment? And what is it about Bruce Lee's history and story that felt urgent or unfinished to you?
Wow. Yeah. Well, that changed over time. Like, so I got this contract years and years ago, as you know,
Mm.
as we just talked about, and of course, a lot of stuff has happened since then. I think the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement. For us, those of us who are Asian and Pacific Islander, on the living here on the continent, um, the pandemic was super big. You know, um, facing the threat of violence, thinking
Stop
about
Asian hate.
thinking about that as an existential kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like where it's coloring more than it normally would, I should say, right? But it's literally forefront of your mind every day when you wake up. Like I have to walk out that door. Oh my
Mm.
God, and thinking
Mhm.
about what that means for our elders and
Our
and
children.
the children, for the women. Um, the women got hit twice as hard as the men did. The children, who
Is
knows?
he
Like
so sad still,
I
right?
mean, I'm just saying in terms of data. Like the children, who knows? Like these are adults that are reporting their own incidents, and twice as many incidents are happening to women as they are to men
Yeah.
during this period. So just feeling unsafe, and then during that particular period, not coincidentally, in fact, related to that, like the image of Bruce reappears in Chinatown and Oak. Like you could walk around in Oakland Chinatown, suddenly there'd be a new mural overnight. Uh,
Yeah.
San Francisco, same thing, right? And New York, LA, Philadelphia, like all over the place. Like you would see, people kind of rallying each other, like in this sort of like clandestine, like nighttime. These artists are going out and putting up these murals just to send messages to folks. Like, hang on, we got
Yeah, yeah,
this.
yeah.
Like, Bruce had this, we got this,
Yeah.
and also asking, I think, for folks to be able to say, hey man, you know Bruce Lee, like if you're not Asian, right? Like
Right.
Bruce Lee, like you can see Bruce Lee, can you see what's happening to us right now? Like a
Wow.
kind of a call, like can you be in solidarity with us right now? And then for us, like, man, can we see the pain of others as well? Like this is
Mm.
the pandemic, of course, is just a marker. I mean, George Floyd is killed in May, and then the following March, there's the shootings in Atlanta. So it was like boom, 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 and then all of a sudden, Bruce is on the walls. And so for me, I was like, at that particular point, I was like, man, this story means a lot. It really needs to be told, and it really needs to be interwoven with the story of Bruce as an Asian American, because that's maybe the best way to kind of understand his life and his choices that he made, you know, is to understand him not just as somebody who's born in the US, then grows up in Hong Kong, but as somebody who also back, migrates back to the US and lives as an immigrant in segregated communities, you know, with black folks and with, you know, other Asian Americans like Japanese Americans who have been, you know, in his generation incarcerated during wartime, and with poor white folks and with Latino folks and living in, you know, these working class neighborhoods that are segregated. That's what really makes him like the person that he becomes on the screen to
Right.
me. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you know, with Water Mirror Echo, I haven't finished it because I'm juggling way too much trying to get.
Plus, it's a hella long book, man. Take your
But it's a
time,
big ass
man.
book, people.
Take your
Look at
time.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Am I supposed to
That's
read that overnight?
man.
Am I?
That's like half the size of your head, man.
You know what I'm saying? And my head is that big. You know what I'm saying? My head's hella
No,
big.
I'm not saying that. I'm
So
just saying that the book is big. Yeah.
no, it's a big book. But what I have read, and I ain't gonna lie, as soon as I got it, I went straight to the Wong Jackman section. I went
Mm.
right because like I
Okay.
am obsessed with that
Okay.
interaction. And the way I'm also obsessed with like the way that Wong Jackman is kind of seen, you know what I
Mm.
mean, through your eyes, because like I think he's always kind of been like a mysterious villain is the best way that I can kind of,
Mm.
you know what I mean, like before, but you humanized him a lot. You know what I mean? I felt like you made him very human, a lot more human than he's been in other books.
Mm.
Um, but the book is very evocative and poetic. Um, I like how you give depth to Bruce Lee's philosophical self. Um,
Mm-hmm.
could you take a moment to kind of unpack like what the title means to you and how it captures the essence of what you're exploring in Bruce's life and legacy?
What the title means to me. That's great. That's a great question. Usually, folks will ask, "What does the title mean?"
Right, right.
And then just boom, that's it. So
It's
let me
peace, man. It's me and you, player. Come
yeah, no, I love
on,
it. I love it. Let me do the what does it mean, and then what does it mean to me. I
yeah.
appreciate that, man. I really do. So, Water Mirror Echo. Like we all know, Bruce's most famous saying is "Be water, my friend." Right. Um, and as it turns out, you know, I was very early on reading the Tao Jeet Kune Do, which I feel like every martial artist probably has on their bookshelf.
And if they
Right.
don't, you better have it. You better go get it.
It's like I was talking to the person who published it, and he was saying, yeah, like they've already lost track. You know, I think they stopped counting around 500,000, and that was maybe like 15 years ago, 15, 20
Yeah.
years ago. But anyway, Dao Ji Kundo, there's a line in there, and it's literally moving be like water, still be like a mirror, respond like an echo. And when I first read, I was like, "What?" You know, I just it knocked me between the eyes, and I'll come back to that in a second. But I had to find out a lot more about that, you know. And as I did research over the years, came to find that it was a translation from this Taoist like classic called the Lidza. Um, that if you're not like a super practicing Taoist, you might not know about it, but um, it's this book uh, that is basically just trying to espouse these different types of Taoist sayings. And in this particular um, passage, which I quote, I'm going to paraphrase it here. It's basically like be open. Like the idea is be open. You know what I mean? Like be open, moving, be like water. So just as we've all thought about it, right? Be
Mhm.
adaptable, right? Be changeable.
Mhm.
Be able to be elusive
Mhm.
to people that are trying to keep you down, right? But just keep it moving, like just flow like water does, down its channels and its passages and that kind of thing. And then you get to the second and the third parts, which really get to the heart of like what Taoism and Zen Buddhism preach, right? Which is still be like a mirror. So, like in nature, in trying to find yourself in your natural state, should try to be quieting yourself as much as possible. And in this regard, it's about quashing the ego and being able to reflect, to be like a mirror, to be able to reflect what's kind of going on out there, to be able to get into the flow of
Yeah.
what is going on around you, um, and then to respond like an echo. So still, it's sort of like this: you're enlarge your receiving state, and then you respond like you come back, like you are meeting what needs. Somebody's saying something, and you're meeting what needs to be said. It's in the exchange that you're having with somebody else. You're reflecting back to them, right? And you're adding your own kind of twist to it, right? It's sort of, it's just this really powerful type of thing. That's sort of what it kind of means to me. The thing that I found was in doing the research, Bruce had probably discovered this probably about 17 or 18 years old, but
Hmm.
through his whole life he was trying to figure out how to use it and what it meant. It was like he was puzzling over these three lines over and over and over
It was
again.
his own. It was his own, like you say, puzzle to solve within himself.
Yeah, totally. And like, so we know, right, how he's like teaching his students to be like water,
Hmm.
right? And he's also adopting other um, kinds of Taoist ideas, this Taoist idea of emptiness. Uh, and he would sort of modify those. He'd be like, strike where you feel emptiness,
Hmm.
um, which is like this sort of Taoist idea, right? This idea, or this Zen Buddhist idea of like trying to get to the heart of things, but also like literally, right? Like if the body's not there, like you're moving into that space so you can like take that space,
Yeah.
and that's probably, if the body's not there, the body's probably going to be there, right? And
Yeah.
so he's adapting it to think about like um about fighting, like how you're defensive, but also how you're on the offense as well.
Yeah.
um but he never got to the this is a tragedy, right? He never got to the parts about like still be like a mirror and respond like an echo. That comes literally like as he's moving towards his death, and then after his death he
Yeah.
becomes a
That's
mirror to all of us, right? And then his words are still responding. It's still echoing literally down the generations to where here you are and I are,
right.
right? Like more
Oh,
than 50 years later talking about it. So
it's such a perfect title, man. It's such a perfect title. And you won't remember this. When when you were still at UC Davis, one day you would have me come up and I
yeah,
came up
yeah,
and we were hanging out on campus.
yeah.
And at the time, and you couldn't have known really, but I had just read the Dhammapada
Mm,
by the Buddha, and I had also previously read Confucian Teachings of the Ming Dynasty.
wow.
And I remember sitting with you between songs.
Yeah,
And
we I was at it was this a radio station that I had,
yeah,
a radio show, I'm sorry, that I had at KDVS. And yeah, and
DJ
you would come
Zen,
up. My yes, DJ Zen. Yes.
DJ Zen.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there with you, and I I mentioned one or both of the books. And I was still like super new to Eastern philosophy, like brand new. Like those are the first two things I'd actually read, right?
Wow, you just jumped in the deep end, huh?
Dude, I tend to do that. I don't know
That's
what
your
it is.
vibe. I know.
I
That's your
tend to just
thing.
like, hey,
For
what's that?
sure. That's your
That's the
thing.
high that's the high. I just
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah. Let
right.
me go attack that one right away.
But you
Yeah.
know what it is? I'm
I
so
love that.
new. I don't realize what I'm doing is deep. You know what I mean? They're just like, here's the book. I'm like,
Yeah,
I
and
don't
you're,
know.
I mean, and look, you were like 20, what,
Yeah,
1,
it's like 21.
22,
It's like
or something
21.
like that at the time. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, and so I remember those sitting there and I talked about them in some way, just mentioned them in passing. And you said something like, well, what do you think of them? And I said, I like them both. And I said something like, I think they're pretty similar and I love them both. And you were like, yeah, but the philosophies are pretty different.
Hmm.
And I remember in that moment, I recognized I had not, I was so happy to have read them,
Yeah.
not really thought about the differences. You see what
Mm.
I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Between like fundamental differences between Confucianism and Buddhism.
Mm.
Right. And then later, as I leaned more into Taoism, not a lot, but I think more than many, um, I really started having a higher appreciation for all of them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All of these
Yeah.
philosophies,
Yeah.
despite being Muslim, all of them have
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
deeply and continue to impact me, like
Mm-hmm.
very regularly.
Yeah.
You know, I still read lots of different Taoist texts. I still read different Buddhist works and things like that, and Confucian as well. But I guess my point is, like, I've never really known what is Jeff Chang's practice, like
Mm.
spiritually and philosophically, and what is it what is the cornerstone that you move from religiously or philosophically? And I'm just asking this as a getting
Yeah.
to Jeff question.
Yeah. No, it's again, like this is why I love hanging with you. Yeah, thank you for the question. You know, I'm looking at a picture of my late dad here actually, and you know, he was somebody who his parents were Buddhist, like devoutly so, and uh, and also deeply, you know, raised within Confucian tradition and all that kind of thing, all that kind of thing too. To the point where it's not like you're actually naming it; it's just there, you know. It's just part of the worldview. And then my dad, like in, I guess high school, transfers to a Catholic high school, so he became Catholic. But
Okay.
it was always so interesting to me because he kept like these primers, not even like the heavy, like you went in the heavy stuff. He had like books from Buddhist temples and that kind of stuff on his shelf. It's not like my dad was a big reader, but I
I understand.
remember distinctly as a kid going to the shelf and be like, "Oh, what's this about?" And just like sitting there and reading stuff and going, "I don't know what this is. Put it back. Like find my puzzle book, you know, like I put on my comic, pull out my Master of Kung Fu comic book, Shang Chi, Master of Kung Fu." Um, but yeah, no, and so I just feel like in that sense, so I was raised Catholic because
Right.
my dad was Catholic. My mom was converted and that kind of thing. My dad was converted too, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess you know, in a lot of ways, I was raised culturally um, in these Chinese, and I know now like Native Hawaiian types of traditions, like things that aren't articulated per se,
But you
because
are.
but yeah, because I'm like the third generation for which like the Americans had completely suppressed the language,
Mm.
and and also because of things in my family and that kind of thing, I wasn't consciously culturally raised Hawaiian, but it's all there now that I'm
Yeah, yeah,
accessing
no
it
doubt.
in middle life.
I
So
hear
I,
it.
you know, so I'm not religiously. I never, you know, I was raised Catholic, confirmed, baptized, confirmed, all that stuff,
Right.
married in the church, whatever. Um, and we've found like refuges, you know, in the Catholic Church that are progressive, that we, you know, love and you know go to and that kind of thing. But we're not like daily Sunday mass
Yeah,
type
I know what
folks
you mean.
anymore. And yeah, and then philosophically, I guess you know, in uncovering these different types of strands of the ways that I was raised, it's possible now for me to kind of put it back together, you know,
Mm.
and be like, yeah, you know, here I am. I was a firstborn son, so you know, there's a whole bunch of
All the
rules,
pressure. What?
Confucian rules, yeah, that you know, descended rules that are there, and all of that stuff is in me, and then also my dad was like hell of like in many ways he was very like go with the flow, like
Mm.
Taoist, and you know, and then also you know raised Catholic, went to an Episcopal school, so yeah, so it's all there. I think in at this particular point in my life, um, I'm most interested in kind of recovering these like Asian and Kanaka Maoli strands of of things and thinking about the kinds of I don't know rituals or concepts or ideas and that kind of thing that I want to be able to keep to pass on to you know my kids are grown now, but you know
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
continue to raise them, and, you know, educate them, and then God willing, grandkids these days, like that would be the kind of thing that would be the kind of way that I raise them, I guess. Yeah.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
No, I was just curious, like, you know, my cliff notes are grew up in a Christian household, went to a Christian school when I was really young, but
Yep.
then like, I was out of that school. I only went there like 2 years. I went to Roger Williams Christian Academy in South San
Oh
Francisco.
wow. Yeah.
And I liked it. I wasn't, you know what I mean? And so I definitely, lived the rest of my life as Christian until I converted to Islam
Mm-hmm.
in 1990, right before I turned 21. And
Right.
then
Yep.
around the time that I came into Islam was when I started learning about Buddhism. That's when me and you started
Yeah.
knowing each other, you know what I
Yep.
mean? And so I went into some really heavy Taoist wormholes, man.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy Buddhist, and just like samurai culture and stuff like that.
Yeah.
As I fell into jujitsu and everything else. And
Yeah.
so, um, one of the things, America has a lot of amazing and a lot of horrifying things about it. Speaking of the yin yang, but I think one of the best things that's awesome is where else would I get to be so many things at one time,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I convert to Islam. No, there's no Gestapo coming to my house yet, right?
Yet. Yet. Yeah.
Right, saying, "Oh, we heard you just converted to Islam." Da 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 da. If tomorrow I said, I'm no longer Muslim, there would not be another Gestapo coming to get me because I stopped. And
Mm.
so, like, to be able to sit here as an African American Muslim who has like Taoist and Confucian sprinkles, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that about America that can
Yeah.
happen. I don't I know whatever I am, I couldn't have been exactly like this anywhere else. You know what I mean? I couldn't have been like this anywhere else. And I can't imagine that a brilliant brain like yours would have been the same anywhere else. It's a trip.
Yeah. It's absolutely a trip, and it's interesting now too to be able to kind of convey in this moment, right, where it's everything is trying to go back to like this hetero Christian kind of norm, like yo, like I think that this is not the way that we came at this before in the past, right? And we
Oh,
should remember like it's not a far reach to be able to get to that cliff and then get pushed right over to the
it's
other
real, bro.
side. So
Very
yeah,
real.
so it's a beautiful thing. And and especially too here you and I get to live in the Bay Area where we get to bump up against all these folks all the time and
Yeah.
just learn from them like at their feet if we want to. So that's just also a beautiful type of thing. And it's kind of the, environment in which I was raised as well. Hawaii was like that as well. Is like
Yeah.
that still in a lot of respects. Um,
Man,
so so yeah, so for this book, it was like fun to be able to really dive in, and also too, like to think about Bruce not just as like this body, this super highly efficient, like deadly body, right?
mhm.
But Bruce as like as his mind is forming, as his thinking and all that kind of stuff is forming, because he didn't only just popularize kung fu and martial arts around the world. He really repopularized. I dare say he's probably like one of the biggest popularizers of Asian philosophies in
Oh,
the last 50 years.
can't even, I'm
So
not even sure who would be second. I
right,
don't know who would be second.
right.
Who you think might be second?
I mean, like if we look over the last like 60 years or so, you could talk about the beatnik poets, and
Right, right,
you could
right.
talk about, scholars like Alan Watts or DT Suzuki,
Right.
but these aren't household names.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, Bruce got everybody reciting this Taoist, like
Bro,
maxim, right?
I
Like
mean,
be water, like
crazy,
moving be like
bro.
water. So, you
Yeah.
know, he,
No,
yeah,
it's really powerful.
definitely that, definitely that.
Um, so now, when we look at Bruce, here's a guy who dies at 32,
Yeah.
and his influence just continues to grow. Speaking about that echo, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, what do you think we're still discovering about him 50 years later? And what conversations about masculinity, race, or artistry does his life open up about things that we weren't ready to talk about in 73? Because I
Wow.
find him I
Yeah.
find him
So
to be
much.
so forward thinking, and I want to hear about some of that from you.
So much. I mean, even the discussion right now, kind of about what it means, like in this political climate, we've all been weaponized,
Mm,
right? We're all getting kind of carved into like this group or that group in somebody else's culture war. You know what
really
I
real.
mean? And I think that even in that regard, like there's some of us who I feel like we were born and we were raised to be warriors, to be those fighters, to be those protectors, um, and we get conscripted also into being aggressors against other folks. And so, in this particular moment, just thinking about how Bruce evolves in his thinking about what it means to fight, right? Like he's there as a kid getting bullied, and so he's like, I got to defend myself. And then there's this fight culture that's taking hold across Hong Kong called Beimo, where different kung fu schools are lining up to fight against each other on rooftops, and Bruce loves that. He actually loves the taste of blood on his lips. I think um, and he gets all up into that, and pretty soon he's out there acting pretty toxic, right? He's out there trying
Yeah.
to I mean, what we would call toxic today. He's out there trying to stir shit up, right? He's out there
Yeah.
trying to cause fights.
Yeah.
Sometimes because you know I don't know, maybe borderline justifiable. Like he's got anger against the British. He's got like this anti-colonial thing that he just feels being a majority in like a minority run colony, in an apartheid
Saying
colony.
absolutely.
Um, and then other things are just like, no, like I want to taunt that other guy because he looks weak to me, and that other
Sneaky
teacher,
sucks real
that
quick.
other Sifu in the other school, like I just want to see how far I can take him. Like his own Sifu has to be like trying to calm him down.
Right.
Um,
Turn loose.
and then he evolves, like he
Mm,
evolves dramatically, coming to the U.S., like learning to live as an immigrant, as a minority who's
mm.
only allowed to go so many places. Like in Chinatown, he comes back to Chinatown at a time where it's like you go up the hill to Nob Hill, and they're like, nope, you're about to get regulated and sent the fuck down back to Chinatown. You go down the block to the financial district, and nope, you're about to get regulated and sent the
Get
fuck
regulated
up the
again, homie.
yeah, get sent back up the hill to Chinatown. Like he's like, wow, that's how it is now. And then he goes to Seattle, and even as he's like chafing at all of the white supremacy around him, he's also like ready to fight it, and he has to learn from his Black American and Japanese American friends, like no, this is actually how you survive, and this is how you actually get yourself killed, right? He wants
Mm,
to get into he's like hanging out with his Japanese American friend Taki Kimura. They're in a car. Bruce is driving. He's not a great driver, and they pull out of the parking lot. And he's driving very slow. So of course, a white cop decides I'm gonna go monkey with these guys, right?
mhm,
So
mhm.
he pulls them over, and Taki and Bruce are laughing over a joke, and the cop pulls up to the window, and he's like, "Oh, you guys are laughing? You guys think it's funny, huh? You think it's funny?" And so Bruce balls up his fist, and
Mm.
he's ready to punch the cop through the window, and Taki's like, no, you're not gonna
Don't.
do that today. You're not like you can get us both like killed or put under the jail forever
Yeah.
and ever for that." And Bruce has to learn those kinds of things, right? He goes to RO2C, which he doesn't take very seriously, but he's an American citizen, so he's got to go to ROTC, and he's getting drafted to go to, what will become the Vietnam War. It's still a secret war in Vietnam at
Mm.
that time. Um, and he's mouthing off to the drill sergeants and stuff. Like people are stunned and like worried for his friends are like worried for him. But this is also the part where he's like, oh man, actually, like these things are pretty big,
Yeah.
and he deals with it in his individual kind of a way, and then he also wants to like try to please folks in Hollywood when he gets the call to go to Hollywood, and it takes him actually a little while, like maybe 10 years or so, for him to figure out,
I can't
oh,
imagine
they
how
actually
hard
see
that would
me.
be.
they don't see me the way that I see myself, right? I see myself as a main character. They don't see me as a main character. Like the directors don't, the producers don't, the police don't. Like nobody, like outside of me and my students, maybe, see me in the way that I see myself.
And ain't that America
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
nutshell,
What's that?
right? I said, isn't that America in a nutshell,
Two
right? For
thousand
all,
percent. Yeah, I
right?
mean that's
You know what I'm saying?
this is Bruce becoming American, but it's also like what makes him into the hero for the underdog, right? Wanted to play like the person who's put upon, who's seeking vengeance, who's backed into a corner into even betraying his own folks, like in the Big Boss and Fist of Fury. He betrays his own folks, and they
Mm,
they pay the price for it. And he has to, like, when he goes and commits his final, like, acts of vengeance and stuff. It's with a lot of guilt on his head too.
right.
He's like he's an anti-hero as well as a hero, in that way, because he's messed up so badly that the Japanese have gone and routed his entire his entire kun in Fist
Yeah,
of Fury,
yeah,
and in
yeah,
Big Boss he's gotten all of his coworkers killed. So when he's at the end of it, he's really literally at the end of it.
yeah.
Um, and I mean that's literally the person that he's seeking to play is somebody who's learning like the hard way how to deal with power, and and then at the end of it he has to go on kind of almost a suicide mission to avenge like the fellow oppressed folks around him that he got
Hmm.
murked.
No, that's
It's
powerful.
kind of tragic, right?
No, it is. It is,
Yeah.
man. It's very powerful to observe. Again with this depth of clarity. You know what I mean? That I think a lot of us didn't know how to see, like we couldn't see it, and then a lot of us, I think, don't even have the cultural clarity to make a meaning out of it. And I think that's a big part of why this book is important. Um, you know, really quick pit stop back at Can't Stop, Won't Stop.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's such a great masterpiece, and it's become a foundational text around the world. And yeah, it's in Russian now, right? You
Yeah. It just
Russian.
got published this year in Russian.
That's cool,
Which,
man.
look at that, man. Can't Stop, Won't Stop is getting banned by Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump. And the Russians are publishing a new edition. Like, that was literally that month or those weeks. I think it was like a space of 2 weeks this past
Yeah,
summer. My head was just whiplash. I was like,
I cannot.
what? What is
Yeah,
going on here? This is
yeah.
wild, you
That's
know?
that's the craziest, right?
Yeah.
And like there's a really great Stoic author named Ryan Holiday who I don't know him, but he's one of my favorite writers really these days around philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of his stuff got banned, I think, at the Naval Academy because he spoke, I think, at the Naval Academy.
Wow.
And,
Why
and they
would.
and they he spoke against book banning. That's what it was. He
Mm,
spoke against book banning inside the Naval Academy because he's like warriors should have access to everything.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then he started getting in trouble with the administration for standing on that. You know what I mean? And so I salute that dude because in an
Wow.
age where like Stoicism is becoming more popular in the mainstream,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's easy to just be the uh the cool white guy who can kick back, get all the money. You know what I mean? He could
Yeah,
have
yeah. He
rolled
didn't
with
have to.
the
He didn't have to put his neck out for that.
yeah, nah, he could have been like, "Oh, I'm rolling with you guys." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's actually like, "Nah, this is weak." And so he's been having problems. Um, but I wanted to know
Well,
what is it?
can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah, yeah,
In that, um, so as you look at Stoicism now,
yeah.
like, what do you think Stoicism offers us for this moment?
Oh my God.
Like in a
It offers
nutshell.
us so much.
Okay.
But the problem is because the necessary pushback against open white supremacy is on the menu right now. That is the menu, like pushback
Yeah.
against open white supremacy.
Yeah.
I think that unfortunately, Stoicism being created by old white men from way back gets lumped in with the other
Yeah.
stuff. And then
Yeah.
so a lot of non-white people who could and should read it, benefit from it, and be able to integrate it to whatever depth they feel they may need it into their lives are pushing back because they're like, I don't need more advice from an old white guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
but that's valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's valuable, and I think that we end up unconsciously um, animal farming.
Okay.
right?
But what are the things that you think are the most valuable for folks to be able
I
to
think the main things are
take away? Yeah.
empathy,
Mm-hmm.
compassion,
Yeah.
discipline,
Mm-hmm.
and doing good for the benefit of the whole.
Yeah.
These are
Boom.
real stoic.
Look at those four things. None of which, I mean, you could see why even in that they would want to ban that. They don't have empathy.
Empathy's new age. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they don't have discipline, right? They don't have like a lot of these, like exactly
Right? And so what
highlighting all
we
those
have,
ideas. Yeah.
I think in the mainstream, what we call mainstream Stoic community, what we have, quite honestly, are a lot of people cosplaying like
Mm-hmm.
Greek themes without actually studying them or
Mm-hmm.
trying to embody the practices of the people they say they celebrate.
Right.
So it's like, I recently did this podcast like two or three back. The cardinal virtues in Stoicism are wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
courage,
Mm-hmm.
right? Justice and
Mm.
temperance, right?
Temp.
Balance, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Go find me any stoic talking head these days that's addressing the virtue of justice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They can't, they won't do it because they're
Yeah.
afraid they'll get dragged into the whoa, so and so's woke now.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, 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 no.
Yeah.
That's a cardinal virtue,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
Just like the
Absolutely.
cardinal points on a compass, as Ryan Holiday spoke about.
Yeah.
Those points matter. So
Yeah.
where are the Stoics where it comes to justice? And so I did this whole podcast about the lack of modern Stoics even addressing justice because they want to be like, I'm taking an ice bath right now. Oh, I've been running for 75 miles, bro, and that's what it's and it's like, nah, dude.
Yeah. And
Where's the justice at? And so
that's it.
the
Yeah.
thing is that real Stoics talk about the practice of justice.
Mm-hmm.
Real Stoics engage the system where it's flawed, right? And so even me, like, I had to acknowledge that, you know, while being definitely an aspiring Stoic in the way that I practice live my life as kind of like a Muslim Stoic Sufi thing,
Mm.
um, I'm 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 so unhappy with the hard right and the hard left that I don't feel like I have a place of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my conservative friends think I'm too left leaning, and most of my left leaning friends think I'm too conservative. And so
Mm-hmm.
that tells me at least I'm a free thinker.
Yeah. That's
But
real. Yeah.
I'm a free thinker. But what it does is it makes me go, man, like people are ignoring Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. And these are exactly the kind of voices that, if amplified more authentically and discussed more holistically, could actually help have a real hand in a rediscovery of our democracy's potential.
Mm-hmm. That's
You know,
powerful. That's powerful.
but we're so busy and understandably like locked into these different tug of wars, and there's so many different tug of wars happening at the same time. It's hard for these kind of conversations to happen, period, let alone with depth, and high visibility.
Yeah. Agreed. I totally agree. I totally agree. But I hear you too, on especially on that notion of justice, because once you start talking about justice, you have to talk about ethics. You have to talk about what's right and wrong. And if you can avoid that entire conversation, then that can allow you to harness some of these ideas and put them to really ill. And I don't mean ill in a ill meaning good, or like
Not bad meaning good.
right, right, right. But just in a really bad kind of way. It's like completely detached from anything in reality, and that has to do with other people. And it just becomes self-serving and shit.
No, it's real, man. And so there's
Yeah.
this book I got hip to by some dude on IG. This is what, social media is for. This book
Uh-huh.
right here, it's called The Nicomachean Ethics, man.
Uh-huh.
And this book is crazy good on ethics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like one of the things that I read this book about Marcus Aurelius, and it was saying that the country at that time was really rooted in cultivating wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was like, when has America ever been dedicated to making sure that all of its citizens had wisdom?
Mm,
The answer is never,
right. As a
never.
wisdom as opposed to learning,
Yeah.
right?
You know
Wisdom
what I'm
as
saying?
opposed to like
Right?
just information,
Yeah,
right?
wisdom being the
Yeah,
action,
yeah, yeah,
right? The action, right? And that's what they said is that the
yeah,
purpose of knowledge is not knowledge. The purpose of knowledge is action.
right.
You know what I mean? That you do something with this knowledge. And that's why having wisdom and courage and moderation, not letting yourself get dragged into either extreme is so crucial.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, everything just feels so disjointed right now. But I had to just face on the justice thing that I feel unseen by both parties. And
Mm-hmm.
so I feel I don't feel motivated to vote. I don't feel like like I just I'm not happy.
Yeah,
I'm not happy. And so I'm challenging myself to re-engage the system. And I don't know what that means. I'll
yeah,
probably vote, but I just still feel so disjointed. I'm not sure. I'm
yeah.
not.
I definitely hear you. I definitely hear you. I mean, in the book, I'm trying to get at some of these questions as well. You know, like in this time in which we've all been kind of whatever conscripted to be on one side or the other in somebody else's culture war, like we're all weaponized.
Yeah.
And what does it mean, especially for those of us? And I'm not saying necessarily that I'm all in on this type of thing, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely feel like there's people in life, like I said, who are it's they see it as their job to be the protectors, to be the warriors.
Yeah.
And I think that, a lot of times, obviously I'm very close to the left. Like people in the left are like, no, those people are the wrong people. And I'm like, actually, like, how do we get here? How have we gotten here through life, right? Uh, and wouldn't you consider like somebody like Martin Luther King Jr. to be a warrior? In a
Come
way,
on,
of
man.
course he was a warrior. And and then you can go on and on and on. Cesar Chavez, Grace Lee Boggs, whoever you want to bring
Yeah.
up. These were folks who saw themselves as protectors, as people
Malcolm.
who,
Right.
maybe they didn't walk around with guns, or maybe they didn't walk around with like a pocket full of BJJ skills or
Exactly.
whatever, but they were warriors,
Yeah.
and so there is a dignity in that. But in this particular point where we're all warriors, like what does it mean to be a warrior? And that's when it gets to like these questions that you raise of justice, of
Yeah.
ethics. Like, what are your ethics, and what is your worldview, and what are you protecting actually,
And that's
right?
more
What are
important than
you?
the fact that you're a warrior, right? Like, what are you
Yeah,
protecting?
it's at
That's
least as
more
important.
important than the
Yeah,
fact that you're willing to fight is
yeah.
what are you protecting?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And
Right,
what are you hoping to uphold,
right.
right?
Exactly. Yeah,
So it's really wild.
it
Um,
is. Yeah.
you know, you've written about hip hop, about visual culture, about Bruce Lee, subjects that might seem like separated, but are
Mm.
deeply connected to individual and collective, right? Identity, resistance, cultural survival. What is, do you think, the through line of your work? Like, what question are you always asking, no matter what the subject?
I think in the books I've written to date, um, it's pretty clear the kinds of stories I like. The kinds of stories I like are the stories of folks who come together, usually facing a lot of violence, whether it be physical or, emotional, mental, psychic, you know. They're facing down that, and yet through their creativity they're able to come together and change it all. Like they're able to overturn the conditions that they've got in some sort of a way, and they're able to make a huge impact on the world. I mean, that's hip hop, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
Bruce Lee and his kung fu generation, right?
yeah.
That's like the artists who, broke through in the sort of quote unquote multiculturalist era, right? Like that's what they've done. So it's pretty clear that I'm attracted to those kinds of stories that then are able to tell larger stories too about um, how people in society at the margins, can fight their way into the middle, into belonging and that kind of thing. So I'd say that that's maybe what I've been writing about to date. I didn't even think about the Bruce Lee story in that kind of way. I thought I'm writing a biography, you know?
Mm,
And I felt actually really trapped for a long time by just the idea of a biography because there's a form for a celebrity biography, and
right.
the theme of a celebrity biography usually is like this person was nowhere near as amazing as you think that they were, which is really a downer, right? If you think about
Right.
it's actually a pretty big downer
We went through
as a
all that just
genre
to
as a
realize it
whole.
kind of sucked, right?
What's that?
I said it's like we went through all that just to realize this person actually kind of sucked and had
Exactly. Yeah. 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 It's the takedown in like whatever 300 or 400 or 500 pages,
yeah.
and who needs that right now? Like, and so I was feeling really trapped by that for a while, and I didn't want to do just something that was going to be like super glowing and super like, oh, this person was like the best, and sort of
Awesome
continue
moment.
all the myths and legends. Who needs another one of that? Like we've got a million accounts out there of of many folks about that. So
Mm-hmm.
why I didn't want to do that either. So I was having a real hard time until it became this story about Bruce and Asian America, like during the pandemic, right, against this backdrop of violence. So there's always this other theme that's happening too in my books, where it's this tension between creativity and violence. Both the folks who are moving from violence to creativity, and also how violence actually lead can destroy but can also lead to these outbursts of creativity.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's and that's in the that's in Can't Stop Won't Stop. It's in We Gonna Be Alright as well. It's there as well in Who We Be, although it's underneath all this art theory. So yeah. Yeah.
Was there anything as you because you did a lot of research and
Mm-hmm.
you spoke to a lot of family members, you spoke to a lot of his training partners and a few relatives and all of that.
Yeah.
Like, what did you learn about Bruce that made you either the most shocked, surprised, or happy?
I mean, two things. One is like he was really he felt very vulnerable at a lot of points in his life, and our picture of him is as somebody who's like defeating everybody who comes at him.
Mm,
Um, and it's really after I started understanding just how despairing and lonely he felt, not just part of the time, but a lot of the time,
mm,
that I actually got to see his movies and see the part that's tragic. Like we are just talking about Big Boss and Fist of Fury, and how these are actually tragedies, right? Like he kicks
mm,
ass, yeah, and he like destroys all the bad guys and stuff in the end, but what's the price? He loses his entire community. And I think that that's all there in his story, and that was like, wow, all the way straight up to the very end, where he's like so committed to this idea of making Enter the Dragon into something that's going to uplift Asian ideas, Asian philosophies, and of course Asian fighting arts, that he'll go to the mat and even sabotage his own movie at different points in order to like actually get his way, to actually get some of the scenes that he wants, to actually get the title of the movie that he wants, Enter the Dragon. They were going to call
mm,
it Han's Island at one point.
right.
And just that made him like understanding his kind of private despairs made him even more of a bigger hero to me. And then the other thing was that he was just a nerd, man. He just like he like had such a hard time with young women. When he was a teen, he's a handsome dude, right? We
Right.
all think of him as a handsome dude, but he
Yeah.
had zero game. Like he's over there, he's a teen idol. He's like on the movie posters and stuff like that. Like young girls are trying to get with him, and he's like he doesn't know what to kick to him. He's literally like, feel my muscles. He's like, yeah, like, feel my muscles. Like, check out my forearm. He's like, he's going to the guys. He's like, man, throw a punch at me. Like, or let me throw a punch at you. And he's like, he just has a hard time with people. Like
That's
on
really
a
sweet,
small talk
actually.
kind of, like, hey man, how you doing? How's the weather? Like, you good? Like, how's your family? Like, like, gee, the chasubawa at that store is really good today. Like, he couldn't do that. he just couldn't do that. He just was like he could only like be the main character,
Right.
and that was like really hilarious. Um, it was funny and actually super eye opening and really kind of in the end heartwarming to hear all these stories from people that he knew at University of Washington who are just
Mhm.
like this guy, man. It's just like we didn't want to hang out with him. That stuff was really really hilarious to me. And again, makes him more human, makes him more even more of a hero in some
No,
ways.
that's
Those
great.
of us who like sit around and like play records all day or read books or like are at our martial arts practice or just total obsessives, like that was him. You know,
No.
he was the guy that kicked 10,000 kicks one
Yeah.
way. He was that
For real.
guy in his
No.
whole life and everything. Yeah. So.
Now, for me, one of the reasons, obviously I love Bruce Lee, obviously, a whole bunch of love for kung fu films and the motivation that it gave me, from the age of 9 to this day, right? Like Black and Asian solidarity has always
Hmm.
been like a big thing for me.
Hmm.
Um, and it was also a very natural thing. Um, there's this rich, and complicated history of cultural exchange between Black and Asian American communities,
Hmm.
solidarity, appropriation,
Hmm. Hmm.
misunderstanding, shared
Yep.
struggle. Bruce Lee and hip hop both sit at the intersections of that exchange. What do you see as the most important or underexplored aspects of that relationship between like Bruce Lee and martial arts or hip hop's affinity for this amazing icon?
Wow, there's so much in that question. And also just to like flag for I mean, you and I have been having this discussion for the better part of like decades. Like,
True.
right?
Like
Since
everybody
the
can watch the
time we're
conversations we had back in Davis.
it's real, man. Like we could take it all the way back to the radio station and before that and all of the hip hop shows that we're at that we're arguing in the back row and stuff while some like legendary performances going on. Like that was us, right? Like we were always doing that. Like we were having these deep conversations about that too. I think especially like in the mid 90s like like around and before and after the Los Angeles uprisings and
Riots, man. It
all
was
of
going
that.
down.
Yeah, man. We were having these conversations. So it's super deep. And at that time for us like Wu-Tang coming in the game in 93 and being like we're unabashed like kung fu like fans and kung fu movie like aficionados.
Mhm.
We know them maybe better than a lot of you guys do,
Yeah,
actually.
real. It's
Certainly,
real.
certainly, I didn't know it so much better than I did. But yeah, and going, wow, Bruce Lee actually puts us in the conversation here. Like
Yeah.
he's cool and he's like somebody that everybody is kind of like can identify with. He's like 5'7", but he's taking on Chuck Norris. Like
Yeah.
the symbolism of that for not just like Asians and Pacific Islanders, but for everybody, I think generation to generation, right, was so powerful. But I think one of the things that's like lost is that we were actually living up on top of each other in that way. And we were
Mhm.
getting pitted against each other back then, of course, too. But these were the kinds of places where folks could come together and just sit down and enjoy. So I try to remind people, I was like, look, man, when Bruce came here, he lived in a segregated community with
Right.
black folks, with
Right.
Japanese folks, with Latino folks, right? And when the movies came back, when the Bruce Lee movies came back to the US, they were playing in segregated communities first. They were playing in Chinatown, they were playing in the black neighborhoods, they were playing in the brown neighborhoods. They weren't
It's
playing
real.
in the white suburbs, you
Yeah.
know? They weren't playing there at all. Like you had to go and see these, if you're in New York in the Deuce or if you're in Oakland, like you're literally right down there on 14th in downtown like watching these movies, right? Or out in Hayward
Yeah.
or just you're at the or here in downtown Berkeley, like you're at the places that were considered inner city theaters that respectable folks were not going to, right? So the movies it made sense. The movies that like were black exploitation movies, the movies that were kung fu movies, the independent movies, the porn movies are all playing in the same
Same
districts. These are
areas.
all the
Yeah. True.
that's why they call it grindhouse, right? Like
Yeah.
That's literally like where these movies are playing, and that's where people are coming together on this. I mean, I talked to somebody, I talked to actually a couple people who were, there at the International Hotel, which was this um, place at the crossroads of Manila Town and Chinatown, right on Kearny Street in San
Mhm.
Francisco, right at the edge of the financial district. And it was a hotel where it was mostly Filipino bachelor workers who were in their old age,
Okay.
living there, and some Chinese old men. It was all bachelors that were living in there, but all of the folks who were kind of it down like for the movement were in the downstairs basements and that kind of stuff, and they were all learning self-defense there. But it was like black sifus teaching like Asian folks, there. And when they were done, they would all cross the street to the Chinatown Theater, the Bella Union, and they would watch Fist of Fury there, and it would be like black folks, Asian folks, poor white folks,
Oh man.
Latinos, Chicanos, just like going crazy
Yeah.
when Bruce kicks the sign "No dogs and Chinese
Yeah.
allowed." Right?
Dude,
I
I
mean,
showed that.
that's basically how it was like back
So
then in the early 1970s, and this is where the movies like root themselves. And so folks are like, why do all these black folks love Bruce Lee, and why do I have all these people like on my post going like, all respect to you, but black folks love Bruce Lee more than you all Asians do, and me going, yeah, I guess that's kind of true in a lot of ways, right?
it's a
Like that's
photo
the root
finish.
of it. That's the root of it.
Photo
Like,
finish, man.
yeah, like where we meet, where we hang, like the stories that we tell each other that seem so distant and weird, but we actually see ourselves in them. That's what's happening in these theaters, and that's the root of it. So, you know, big up the cultures that can bring us together like that,
Yeah.
and make
No,
us point ourselves towards the real enemies.
it's really
Yeah,
beautiful, man. I got two more questions.
sure.
Um,
Could talk all
so
day, man.
I know. Like we could do
Yeah.
one of those Joe Rogan-esque things where like 3 hours later. And then, you know what I'm saying? Like we
Musical
can
interludes and
yeah,
yeah, stuff like that. I know.
exactly.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
could do
yeah.
it.
I hear you.
Um, one, I wanted to say something just to comment about the thing you talked about Bruce being really lonely because
Mm,
it actually reminded me of a moment I had with RZA where
mm,
the I did this guest curation at the World Chess Hall of Fame for one of the biggest things that ever happened there, which was this hip hop and chess exhibit that we did, right?
right.
Thing was is that it dropped right literally the Ferguson uprising started like I think 48 hours before this thing opened.
Wow, this is like
It was
August of what,
dude, and
2013
it
or something
like
like
the
that? Yeah,
whole
20. Yeah, yeah.
country was
Uh-huh.
on fire, right? It was
Right.
really bad. So a lot of people don't know that me and RZA almost didn't even go to St.
Mm,
Louis for the opening because there was a lot of stuff happening
wow.
inside the machine of that organization, the World Chess Hall of Fame. And so we got everything figured out. We go there. I went there the first day. It was storming. Overnight, another young black man named Vonderit Myers gets killed by an off-duty cop. And
Yes.
Mike Brown's already on everybody's tongue,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And so me and RZA actually stayed at a hotel away from where we would normally have been, just
Mm,
because it was very hard to know what was happening. I mean, National Guard or whoever is showing up. There's all kinds of stuff popping. And I remember me and him were getting ready to go talk to these kids. And RZA had landed in the night and he didn't know that anybody had gotten shot. And I was like, look, this other guy got shot. We got to go do this talk. Like, we were
mm-hmm.
in the Cheshire Hotel.
Mm,
I was like, we're in the hallway. I was like, what do you want to do? He was like, what do you think we should do? I was like, I think we should say everything we're gonna say anyway. I was like,
mm,
I don't want to change anything because this kid got shot, but we have to be clear about what's happened in the city and everything else. And he was like, yeah. And
mm-hmm.
so we
Mm-hmm.
got into the hotel, we got into the elevator of the hotel, and we were standing, and then I pushed the thing, and it's just me and him in the hotel, and I looked at him, and I could see his head was down, and he was just like really deep in thought, and I was like, it must be really lonely to be RZA sometimes.
Mm.
Think as
Mm-hmm.
deeply as he thinks about
Mm-hmm.
martial arts,
Mm-hmm.
about music, about social justice, about vegan. Like it must be very lonely to be able to go into the wormhole of yourself and observe
Yeah.
society. And I feel like Bruce Lee, like that had to be very. I never asked him. I didn't say anything to him about
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah.
just observed it. You know what I mean? And like I can imagine that at that time in his life, in that year in America, 1970, whatever, that's
Yeah.
gotta be hard
Yeah.
to think like it could be like this, but the whole world is archaic in its reception of you and these kinds of ideas, and the systems are set up against everything that you're thinking about.
That's right. Yeah. And you're pushing against incredible odds, a huge rock up a very steep hill, and you just never know if you're going to get there, you know.
Yeah,
And
at
that's the
all.
thing that I got to see in his writings, you know. Particularly like some of the writings that he did in Chinese, which I don't read, but I
Mm,
have a really good friend who also she was a Wing Chun practitioner, and she was she's got her degrees in Chinese literature. She like understood like all of the subtext to all the things that he was writing in these pages, which, you know, like if you just look at it, it's like, why would he write this phrase? It's an old Chinese saying or something like that. And
right.
we would talk about those kinds of things. And they all pointed to this like picture of somebody who's got big emotions, big dreams. And then suddenly he's also got like all of these you know, assortment of lucky breaks and like great work that he's built for himself to be able to move into position to be that person. And I felt like so many of the stories of Bruce have been written from almost a sense of, and I understand it, awe, like
Right.
reverence, you
Of
know,
course.
reverence. And yet like in many ways, like we would forget that in order for him to become transcendent, like he actually had to go through a lot of garbage,
Yeah.
and he had to really fight with himself and struggle with his own soul. And so that's the stuff that was kind of in there that was really really moving to contemplate, and just to think, especially maybe even in the last year of his life, where he's a whirlwind of activity. He's got all kinds of people around him, but how isolated he must have felt at certain points
Totally.
really made me feel a lot of empathy, you know, for him. And yeah, and you know, you're thinking about somebody like Riza here, and you and here are in this historic moment, right, in history, like not just in Black history, like in American history,
Yeah.
right? And you've
Yeah.
got a little thing that's going on here. Um, and but yet you're still thrust into this situation where you have to meet the moment. And Riza, knowing the kind of weight that he has, like contemplating, like you're saying, and that I can
Yeah.
totally see it in that elevator.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah,
It was a crazy moment, you know. And we went and we did some amazing talks like in the juvenile
absolutely. Yeah,
and also in public and stuff like that. And we had a great time and we had a great impact on the city of St. Louis. And I'm grateful to the World Chess Hall of Fame.
yeah.
Susan Barrett, who was the head curator at that time, who invited me to come do some stuff and really opened up a lot of great opportunities for me and Riza to share our ideas with the youth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in closing, oh, I know I said two questions. I have really three.
Well, no,
Okay,
and I just wanted to say this too, like, you know, so like we all know how this book ends, Watermere
yeah,
Echo, right? We all know
yeah,
how it ends. I think the thing that struck me the most was as I was coming to the end of writing the book, because I also wrote it chronologically for the most part,
yeah, yeah.
was like actually how melancholy I felt about it
Mhm.
all, you know,
Mm,
about him passing away. And so, you know, for me, like just thinking a little bit about that, you know, thank goodness, you know, and you know, thank everybody and thank especially his loved ones around him that Riz is still here. But you know, like we lost Bruce at 32, and just thinking about like what that means, in the context of it being premature death, in the same way
Oh,
that we're talking about like Michael Brown and Von Derek Myers.
yeah,
Like I was unexpectedly, as I was writing those last chapters, thinking a lot about all the premature death in my family and in my community, and how I've been like pulled in. It was giving me the same sort of feelings that I had when I went to Ferguson and when I was, um, out there in the streets for BLM and
yeah.
doing all the work that we've been doing and stuff all these years around that. Um, that was really unexpected for me. But in that sense, I it reinforced my thing of like, Bruce's story has often been told by putting his death in the first sentences.
Right. That's true.
Like
That's
the movie,
true.
and like the movies and the books and that kind of stuff. And it just reinforced for me the feeling of I'm not going to do that. This is
That
not
was
about a
really
it's not about
smart.
a death, it's about a life.
That was really smart
So,
of you, and I think it resonates in the in the in the book. You know what I mean? The way that you write about him, is it's authentically more animated. You feel like a deeper visual, you know what I mean, than
yeah.
just the movie clips of that are fragmented in your brain.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like when we talk about even like Jimi Hendrix, right? Or Kurt Cobain, we don't start with their deaths when we tell their story.
Yeah,
You know what
right.
I mean? So I
Period.
was like, why do I need to start this story like
There.
everybody else? Yeah, with his death. I mean,
No, that makes
it's the
sense.
source for like all of these bad movies, right? All these
Mhm.
Bruce exploitation flicks. Um, so yeah, I didn't want to do that. Because again, this is about celebrating and thinking about like what he did in life and what he gives us to live for in our lives.
Absolutely,
So
man.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Now, um, because I started the book at the Wong Jackman
Let's talk about it.
uh um chapter, you know, I'm actually lucky enough to be from the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community and know a lot of amazing people in the traditional Chinese martial arts community.
Hmm.
And because I started with judo and horrible karate in my youth, um, horrible judo as well, if I'm honest. Um, my love for traditional martial arts, I think, is higher than a lot of modern MMA and jiu-jitsu people. Like I
Hmm.
think in the modern MMA and jiu-jitsu community, there's way too much. Yeah, that's old stuff, bro. Right now we're grappling,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
about
yeah,
right.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like, nah,
Absolutely.
man, like not only is there a technical root and value to traditional Asian martial arts, it's also like the cornerstone of what makes mixed martial arts possible.
Hmm.
Right? You don't have mixed martial arts if you don't have martial arts, right?
Right.
So,
That's right. That's exactly it. Yeah.
right? And so that's a bit that's a big deal. And so I've been lucky enough to come across a lot of people who are descendants of the Wong Jackman lineage and stuff like that. And it's interesting to see how many people from his lineage still seem to carry the hurt of that outcome. Um,
Yeah.
I see them still kind of frustrated, still, um, upset or whatever. And it's really interesting because at the same time, I still think that Wong Jackman um, is also like greatly misunderstood.
Hmm.
What did you make of him ultimately, and what was your interpretation of the fight and its result?
Wow. Okay, we could talk. This is like a whole nother hour
This is its
long.
own podcast, right?
Honestly, it is 2,000%. So same as you. Like when I was studying martial arts, I was in a Kaj Kembo Kun in Oakland, in which there was um, a direct student of Wang Jack Man who was actually teaching us Northern Shaolin Kung Fu. as part of the Kajukenbo trainings. So and and she was a white woman. So
Right.
it's
Right.
like the whole story, first of all, about Wang Jackman trying to defend the honor of Chinese and prevent Bruce from teaching non-Chinese. Like, I think that's like absolutely way overstated and possibly outright false.
Right.
And I'm happy to show the receipts to anybody. It's all there in the book. Like, you can
Right.
look at the footnotes. You
Yep.
can you can challenge me on it. Um, and that's not just me. I'm actually, Charles Russo, amazing journalist here in the Bay
That
Area.
guy's awesome, by the way.
Everybody has to reach striking distance.
If you don't
Like,
reach striking distance, you're already slipping.
if you're a Bruce Lee fan and you don't have striking distance memorized line by line, I'm calling you on it. You're not a real Bruce Lee fan.
Yo, yo,
So let's
shout
say that.
out.
Let's say that. Let's just say that. But I and Charlie like cast doubt on that thesis as well. So
Yeah.
um so that's the first thing to say. That the proper context to kind of understand the fight is not within this like sort of realm of Wang Jackman and Bruce Lee battling for the right for Kung Fu to go outside of the Chinese community. Like, and to be fair, I feel like Bruce like was so influential, and Kung Fu by now has been so influential
Yeah.
on the history of fighting arts in the US that
Yeah.
at some point somebody would have invented a story on how Kung Fu became American. And it just happens
Right.
to be this story and this figure, Bruce Lee, right?
Yeah.
Because of a whole bunch of things, including the fact that Linda, his wife, after his death, had sort of written this story into her book. And I
Right.
don't think that she ever considered that it would have these kinds of ramifications, right? Which is this is like sort of the moment, like when we talk used to you and I used to talk about jazz and hip hop and how
Yeah. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
hope that hip hop would never end up like jazz, where suddenly like the black roots of jazz are getting erased. And then as it turned out over time, like that took care of itself, in part because of the work that the writers about hip hop did, and in part because of the overwhelming artistry of black artists
Yeah.
all the way through it, and their insistence on telling the story like this is our story, like over and over and again.
True.
um and like there would have been a story to come out that would have been like, here's how Kung Fu became American, here's how Kung Fu literally, quote unquote, got to white people,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
through Bruce Lee. Okay, so let's push all of that aside and say, like, that's overstated. That's not really what was going on. The facts on the ground, as in part also uncovered by Jackman's student himself, Rick Wing, um, are that Chinatown was looking at Bruce, at San Francisco Chinatown was looking at Bruce as the bad guy because he had come in bragging about his styles, and they challenged him in a presentation that he had done. They kind of counter challenged him in this presentation he had done in San Francisco Chinatown, and they heard him saying from the stage. It's not clear whether he actually said it or not. You want to test me? Come and test me.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
words,
That was
right?
that was that was the cliff note of the vibe.
Right. Yeah. And so it's like this personal like thing. And mind you, like Bruce had to leave Chinatown, San Francisco Chinatown, because he had challenged the most powerful coon in Chinatown at that particular moment. So there's already like he's coming back like 5 years later. There's already all of this memory that has
Yeah.
been passed
Memory.
down. Yeah, like between the students and this very small San Francisco Chinatown Kung Fu community, that are coming to the fore when Bruce returns and tries to do this demonstration on stage and gets challenged in the audience by that. And then that leads to this challenge between Wang Jackman and Bruce Lee, which we don't know what the outcome was,
Right.
right? We really don't. Like, there's these accounts. There were like maybe anywhere from like six, I don't know, 6, 7 people to like maybe 14 people in there. And
Mm.
everybo's, kind of got a Rashomon kind of picture about it,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
over the years. And we know Linda's version the best. And it just so happens that it's written in a way that it can play into this like here's how kung fu became like non-Chinese type
Right.
of mythology. Um, but yeah, to me, as we think about it now, it was really just a challenge fight between two guys. One was a guy, Wang Jackman, who like literally was like a superstar. He came up in the Jingmo school, and so he learned all the best of the best. He's in terms of like forms, in terms of like
Yeah,
styles and
he
all
was
these different kinds of
virtually
things.
flawless in the way that he moved.
Absolutely. And he was
He,
beautiful and the way that he did it, and you could tell him like do such and such form of such and such school and he'd do it for you.
yeah,
Like he was like the epitome. He was like the Harvard graduate of Kung Fu. You know what I mean? When he comes to Hong Kong. And so that's how they welcome him. He's
right,
like the favored son, right?
right.
And Bruce, like, is the bad immigrant. Bruce is
Yeah,
the guy.
he's like the rude offshoot who's not playing by the rules.
He's like the street brawler. Like in terms of schools, right? He's like studied like up through, I don't know, somebody will correct me on this, but like the he's only studied a little bit of the forms of Wing Chun.
Yeah,
He's like done most of the work on the wooden dummy, like outside of Ip Man's school,
right.
right? He's never really formally finished any kind of schooling in that kind of a way, and he's picked up a lot of stuff actually from the same lineage as Wang Jiakman, um, through a Sifu, but he hasn't learned the whole thing, So this is in part what leads him later on to be like, forms. Who cares about the forms?
Yeah, let's just throw these to the left, actually.
And he's right about that because the forms are beautiful, but they don't necessarily help to fighting any better, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
And so he's coming in and he's the kid who kind of like, like flunked out of high school, and he's going up against the Harvard guy,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so, and Bruce is brash and he's like getting people angry, and Wang Jack Man is like very humble and retiring, and he's a
Uh,
new immigrant and stuff. So it's literally in Chinatown at this particular point. It's literally good immigrant versus bad immigrant at a time when immigration is beginning to come into Chinatown after being stopped by the Chinese Exclusion Act for generations upon generations. Like immigration is starting back up in
right.
Chinatown. So there's these tensions then too between all these folks who have been living in Chinatown for generations and the new immigrants that are coming
Beautiful.
in. So when these two immigrants are fighting, it's a spectacle, right? And again, it's good immigrant versus bad immigrant. That's all I think the fight was about, man. It was a basic challenge. And in Chinatown, it's getting played up as, oh, the good guy and the bad guy. And Bruce is the bad guy,
Right,
right?
right.
And so what we can say is legitimately, like, however the outcome of the fight came out, Bruce was upset that he was super out of conditioning. um, Wang Jack Man, uh, like he, the way that it's told is he tripped over some wooden boards. And anybody who's been in an old building in Oakland knows exactly what that's about. He
For
tripped over
sure.
some old boards, and Bruce jumped on him and forced him to submit, and he did.
Yeah.
But who knows? Like if it had been a best of seven,
Right, right,
right?
exactly.
Like
We're gonna do two out of
the
three on
wor-
this.
the
Out of
World
three.
Series of Oakland versus San Francisco, Chinatowns, like who would have come out on top? Who knows? But Bruce was upset about being out of conditioning. He realized that all of his Wing Chun based tools were actually not as helpful as he thought they were, and this like causes him to lean even more into like incorporating more kinds of styles
Wow.
of fighting into his learning, and he becomes like a conditioning freak.
He
Like
totally,
after this, what's up?
yeah, yeah, he totally, yeah, I agree. The conditioning went through the roof after that.
Yeah, totally. And so that's what leads us straight line to Jeet Kune Do and the expansion of Jeet Kune Do. And there's no doubt that the Wang Chapman fight led to that. But what it meant outside of that, I think it's still going to be debated. Oop, I think you froze, brother. Uh, uh, hello? Oh no. Um, Hey, hello? Are you there? Are you there? Are you there, brother? Hello? I let's go to the chat. I'm not getting you too much here.
Go. Oh.
Uh hey, I'm not getting much.